The most powerful move a human being can make today is not speaking first, not dominating a room, not being the loudest, but sitting in silence long enough to think clearly in a world addicted to noise. This is not weakness, this is dominance in disguise. And the people who do it naturally have been underestimated for decades. But what if I told you that the quietest people in every room are no longer just misunderstood? They are becoming the most valuable minds in a society collapsing under constant stimulation. And if you are one of them, your silence is not a flaw. It is an evolutionary advantage that the world is finally being forced to recognize. This is the hidden truth behind quiet, the power of introverts in a world that cannot stop talking. And today I want to show you a perspective that goes far beyond personality, beyond traits, beyond labels, into something deeper, something psychological, economic, and societal, something that will change the way you see yourself in the world forever. We live in a world where noise has become a currency. The louder something is, the more attention it gets. The faster it spreads, the more value we give it. We see it everywhere, in politics, entertainment, workplaces, even relationships. The person who can speak the longest, shout the hardest, or argue the fiercest is often seen as the leader. Yet beneath all of this noise is a quiet crisis, a subtle shift, a slow collapse of human attention, empathy, intuition, and depth. And guess who has been unconsciously training for this moment? The people who never relied on noise to survive. The people who navigated the world through observation instead of performance. The people who feel drained, overstimulated, overwhelmed by environments that others seem to enjoy. The introverts. But quiet is not just a book about them. It is a revelation about the world we have created and why the quiet mind is becoming more powerful, more needed, and more relevant in 2025 than ever before. Let me show you what society never told you. Every skill that is becoming rare today is a natural strength introverts have cultivated their entire lives. Deep focus in a distracted world, emotional awareness in a reactive culture, independent thinking in a society addicted to following trends, listening, not just hearing but truly understanding, the ability to process information before responding, the ability to remain calm in chaos, the ability to analyze intentions, not just words. We call these soft skills, but they are actually survival skills in a world that is collapsing under the weight of overstimulation. And the more society loses its attention span, the more valuable you become without even trying. But here is the twist that most people never see. Quiet is not about praising introverts or criticizing extroverts. It is about exposing one of the biggest myths modern society ever sold us. The myth that the ideal person is always the confident talker, the charismatic speaker, the social butterfly. Schools reward it. Workplaces celebrate it. Social media amplifies it. But this bias was not created because it is true. It was created because companies, institutions, and industries needed people who could communicate openly, collaborate loudly, and perform visibly. This worked in the 20th century. It does not work anymore. Not in a digital world. Not in a remote world. Not in an automated world. Not in a world where depth is rare, originality is scarce, emotional intelligence is collapsing and attention is being eaten by algorithms. Quiet shows us that introverts are not just different. They are misunderstood because society built systems that favored noise over substance. But now, those systems are failing. Look around. People are exhausted. Burnout is rising. Social anxiety is increasing. Attention spans are shrinking. Everyone is always online, always performing, always reacting. And in the middle of this noise, the quiet mind is becoming a sanctuary, a strategic advantage, a psychological superpower. This is not about personality anymore. This is about survival in a world drowning in noise. Let's take a moment to look at real life. Think about the person in your life who always senses when something feels off. The one who notices details no one else sees. The one who finds solutions quietly. The one who thinks before speaking. The one who listens deeply. They often feel invisible, forgotten, overlooked. Yet when crisis hits, who do people run to? The loud one or the steady one? The performer or the observer? The talker or the thinker? Noise entertains, but silence stabilizes. And the world is becoming desperate for stability. Let me tell you a story you have probably lived without realizing. Imagine a classroom. The teacher asks a question. A few hands shoot up. Loud voices answer quickly. Some wrong, some right, mostly confident. Meanwhile, one student at the back of the room quietly thinks through the question, connecting dots, analyzing patterns, forming insights the others never considered. But the teacher moves on before they speak. Their brilliance never leaves their mouth. Not because they are incapable, but because the world rewards speed, not depth. Now fast forward 20 years. The loud ones are struggling with focus, with burnout, with emotional regulation. The quiet one, the thinker, the observer, is building systems, creating frameworks, leading from behind the scenes, shaping industries. They were not slow. The world was impatient. This story plays out in adulthood, in workplaces, in relationships, in friendships, everywhere. Quiet shows us that we have been misreading introverts not because we lack understanding, but because we measured people by the wrong metric. We confused performance with intelligence, volume with leadership, charisma with character. And now we live in a world where the loudest people often make the worst decisions, while the quietest people quietly carry the weight of thinking for everyone. But here is the part that will shock you. In the modern economy, introverts are outperforming at the highest levels of innovation. Most groundbreaking creators, thinkers, and strategists are quiet, deeply internal, and extremely introspective. Not because introverts are magically gifted, but because the type of thinking required for innovation and creativity demands solitude, depth, reflection, and silence. You cannot write a novel in a crowd. You cannot build a company in a constant party. You cannot create original solutions when your mind is overstimulated. Noise destroys originality. Silence fuels it. And this is the message society never taught us. The world trains us to speak, but not to think. To respond, but not to reflect. To perform, but not to observe. Introverts have been practicing these neglected skills naturally for years, often feeling like outsiders because of it. But quiet tells us that the outsider was never behind, they were ahead. They just lived in a world that did not know how to value them. Let's talk about relationships, because quiet gives insights that hit deeply here. Many introverts think they are bad at relationships because they prefer meaningful conversations over small talk, depth over speed, connection over attention. But what if I told you this is not a weakness? It is a filter, a protection mechanism. In a society where people treat relationships like temporary entertainment, introverts treat them like emotional investments. They do not waste energy on connections that lack authenticity. They do not chase attention. They do not perform to fit in. They bond through alignment, not convenience. And this makes their relationships stronger, more stable, more genuine. Quiet helps you understand that your way of connecting is not less, it is intentional. And intentional connections are rare. Now let's shift into psychology, because the real power of quiet lies in understanding that introversion is not about being shy, awkward, or antisocial. It is about energy and stimulation. Introverts are not avoiding people. They are avoiding overstimulation. They are not quiet because they lack words. They are quiet because they think before they speak. They are not distant because they do not care. They are distant because their emotional capacity is limited and precious. The world sees these traits as weaknesses because we build systems that reward overstimulation. But overstimulation leads to burnout, anxiety, addiction, impulsive decisions, and emotional exhaustion. Introverts avoid this naturally. They live with internal boundaries that protect their mental stability. And in 2025, this is not just healthy, it is essential. Quiet also addresses a powerful truth. Introverts often feel guilty for needing space, for wanting solitude, for taking time to recharge. But listen closely. Solitude is not a luxury for introverts. It is oxygen. Their clarity, creativity, emotional stability, and internal peace come from withdrawing, resetting, reflecting, and thinking. The world calls this isolation. Quiet calls it regeneration. And the people who learn how to regenerate are the ones who survive the long term. Now let's go deeper. One of society's biggest misconceptions is the idea that introverts lack confidence. That is not true. Introverts lack tolerance for environments that drain them. That is very different from lacking confidence. The loudest person in a room is not always the most confident. Sometimes they are the most insecure. They speak to fill silence, to manage anxiety, to control perception. But the introvert's confidence is quiet, steady, grounded. It shows up not in how much they say, but in the quality of what they say. Not in how often they speak, but in when they choose to speak. That type of confidence carries more weight. It leaves a deeper impact. It is not flashy, but it is unforgettable. Quiet also reveals a truth about leadership that modern workplaces are finally acknowledging. The best leaders are not always the charismatic extroverts. They are often the calm, intentional, emotionally intelligent introverts. The leaders who listen more than they speak. The leaders who observe before acting. The leaders who trust their team instead of dominating it. The leaders who create psychological safety instead of pressure. The leaders who think deeply about consequences instead of making impulsive decisions. The leaders who are not afraid of quiet moments because they know that clarity is found there. Companies are beginning to learn something very important. Loud leadership burns people out. Quiet leadership builds people up. In 2025, with remote work, deep tech, global chaos, and constant digital stimulation, introverted leadership is becoming the new gold standard. Because in a noisy world, people follow the one who remains calm. Let's talk about the economy and innovation. Quiet minds built the digital world we live in. The apps you use, the platforms you depend on, the systems you trust. Most of them were created by people who preferred solitude over crowds, ideas over conversations, thinking over performing. Innovation requires discomfort with noise and comfort with silence. It requires patience, introspection, long periods of deep work. These traits are not popular. They are not flashy, but they are powerful. Quiet minds move the world forward without needing the world to clap for them. Now I want to speak directly to you, the viewer, because this is not just a script. This is a message you were meant to hear. If you have ever felt like you are too quiet, too observant, too withdrawn, too sensitive, too reflective, too introspective, too different, quiet is your reminder that nothing is wrong with you. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are not weak. You are wired for depth in a world obsessed with noise. You are built for clarity in a world drowning in distraction. You are designed for meaning in a world chasing attention. You are the person people will turn to when the noise becomes unbearable, when the chaos becomes too much, when the world finally realizes that loudness is not leadership, noise is not intelligence, and performance is not wisdom. Quiet shows us that introverts do not need to become extroverts to succeed. They need to become themselves fully, unapologetically, intentionally. The world does not need more noise. The world needs minds that can think, hearts that can feel, people who can observe reality without being swallowed by it. And whether you know it or not, you are one of them. Your quietness is not something to fix. It is something to understand, protect, and embrace. Because the world is changing. And the skills the future demands are the ones you have been cultivating in silence for years. Now, as we reach the end of this journey, I want you to remember one thing. In a world that cannot stop talking, silence becomes a power move, a strategic advantage, a form of emotional intelligence, a sign of thoughtfulness, a foundation for clarity. And the people who master silence become the ones who are heard the most, not because they speak often, but because when they finally do, every word matters. If this video resonated with you, if it felt like someone finally explained a part of you that society overlooked, then do not keep it to yourself. Like this video so more people can discover it. Comment your thoughts so we can create a community of deep thinkers. Subscribe for more mind-shifting content and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next upload. Because this channel is not about noise. It is about depth. It is about understanding. It is about empowering people like you. People who have spent years feeling unseen in a world addicted to loudness. Your quiet power is real. Your quiet mind is valuable. And your quiet presence is changing the world, even when you don't notice it.